And we are live on the interwebs. Welcome back, boys and girls, theys and thems, for another exciting edition of Mr. Fish. Draw somebody else's comic. All right, we are going to be inking today. So we are going to grab our inking brush, little Smoothie Comics Inker 2 from, what is it, Retro Texture Supply? Something like that. We're going to make sure we got us the blackest of black inks. I'm going to change this because I got my colors all backwards. Background white, foreground color to black. I'm on. No, this is the way the comic looks originally. Yada yada yada. Got the Sentinels showing up in the old Navicube, and they're up in the Rocky Mountains at a secret base hidden in the mountains. And now to start inking, I'm going to give that page an old flippy voo. So I'm looking at it all backwards now. So any little things that pop out now, eyes aren't straight, something like that, will all jump out at me now. Make it easier to see. Lines nice and light. That is a scratch on the screen. And now I'm going to make a new vector layer above that. I'm going to turn the color to black. So when I'm looking down here at my layers, I can automatically see that that color right there is black. And I know that is my inking layer. I don't have to worry about writing inks on that layer in tiny little lettering that my old eyes can't see. We're going to come in here and we're going to start doing a little inking. Gonna put a few lines on the page. That's what we're going to do. We're going to see how steady old Fishy's hand is. That wasn't very steady at all. Let's. We don't have our stabilization set very high. There we go. There we go. Sometimes it just takes a couple of tries. Takes a couple undos. That's the nice thing about working digitally, and it gets us all spoiled, really, is being able to just hit undo and not have to make that line work because we can't do anything else. We put a black line on white paper, it's there now. So nice being able to undo. Side Crimson Streaks glasses here. I like to give just the hint of his eyes. I don't want it to fully look like you can see his eyes through his red goggles, but I want to give just the hint that you can tell where the shadows are hitting. Be able to tell a little bit of his expression. And Roy's never told me to stop doing it, so I keep doing it. I like to have just the hint, just you can see the shadow of his eyes. Old T&T Todd had a rough time in the last issue, which you should have picked up on the Kickstarter. Got his old arm in a sling. You want to know why his arm's in a sling? Pick up issue 11 of the Sentinels, available on Indie Planet soon. Or you can pick up a copy when you're back. The Sentinels, issue 12, coming to Kickstarter soon. Kickstarter, where you find all the best indie comics. I don't know why I like talking like an announcer. kind of like talking like old Casey Kasem announcer type dude every once in a while. That's Kickstarter, where you find all the best books. Coming at you now from Vallonia, Arkansas, Mr. Fish, with another issue of The Sentinels. But live now on Kickstarter at GoMrFish.com, right there. You can back Alice, Lost in Wonderland, issues 1 through 3. Available now. Alice has found herself over the high skies of Neverland, where the ground was long ago lost below the toxic cloud. While they make a beautiful sunset, they will melt the flesh from your bones. And now she finds herself in a face-off with the fearsome pirate, Captain Hook, the terror of Neverland. Will she survive? Will she get the information she needs to get hot on the trail to be able to capture and kill her adopted father, the White Rat? Find out in the issue, in the pages of Alice, Lost in Wonderland. Issues 1 through 3 available now on Kickstarter at GoMrFish.com. I just enjoy that. What's up, Mr. Nope? Good to see you. Glad to have you in the house. Hope you're having a good day. Getting ready for seizing said day. Or maybe it's the end of your day and you're ready to seize the book. Either way, I hope you enjoy it. See something, brother. See something. I'd like to seize me a handful of my cute wife, but she had to go to work. So I'm seizing the page. The page of the Sentinels. Issue 12. Available soon on Kickstarter. Relaunch page is open now. Go give it a follow. Do Young Fishy a favor and follow the campaign for the Sentinels Issue 12. Help me feed my kids and pay my mortgage. And while you're there, maybe you'll consider supporting Alice, Lost in Wonderland. Issues 1 through 3 available now on Kickstarter at GoMrFish.com. I've been annoying the hell out of myself with that voice for like the last 2 days. After seeing your launch animation for number 2, I think Alice would make for an awesome. I'm telling you, right? It would make an awesome animated show. And I actually bought a copy of Moho version 12. It's a little bit older version. Oh my goodness, the stuff I can do with that now that I couldn't do when I made that video last month. Oh my goodness, man, I could straight up make like at least like a kids animated show level of animated series. Like I could definitely do like a YouTube animated series. Call would be real easy. Call would be super easy. And I could do most of those voices by myself. The problem is, I can do a lot of voices. I can't do a convincing woman. Maybe an old woman, but I can't do a very good Alice. So that's the only thing that holds me back is I'd have to depend on somebody else. I've been waiting on my friend, a sister from another mister, Sarah White. Little Sarah White from up north in Yankee Land to help me with the audio files for the voiceover, like, you know, read along portion to help out all my friends and followers that have, you know, dyslexia or reading disabilities or whatever, so they can follow along. Because I know, especially being a part of the Tourette's community, there's a lot of comorbid situations, and I know like a handful of my fans are dyslexic for sure. And so we're working on an audio version of the book so it can help you follow along, kind of like the old books that we used to get with the tape. And it's like, when you hear the chimes, turn the page. And you turn the page, and then, the narrator would read along. We're doing that, but I wanted to get a good female voice to do Alice. And my buddy Sarah volunteered. I was awesome. That'd be great. I think she'd have a good voice for it because she's got a nice voice, and she could pull off a little bit of the crazy because Alice ain't right. And there's some other voices in there, females. I was like, yeah, that would be great. But she lives up north in Yankee Land, and she's been having a lot of trouble with the smoke from the Canadian wildfires, and it's got her voice all tore up, and she hasn't been able to record for a while. But you're right, Kyle would be hilarious. I actually, when I was running the first campaign for Kyle, I got somebody to make me a V-tubing rig. I hired one of the cheapest guys I could find on Fiverr. I built all the pieces, and I gave it to him to build me a Kyle V-tubing rig so I could act with my face and stuff, and Kyle would talk and move. Because I wanted to do interviews, like live interviews with people as Kyle, and be like, the mighty Kyle falls for no man. And, just be screaming all the time as Kyle. And I really wanted to do that, but the rig came out wonky. And like when I would open my eyes, Kyle would close his eyes. And the only way I could get Kyle to open his eyes really big was to close my eyes really small, but then I can't see what's going on. And so I couldn't get that expression out of him that I wanted to get. And at the time, I just couldn't afford to pay somebody, $200 to do a nice rig. And so it didn't get used. I was frustrated. But now I could just make an animated figure of him and move it around and do whatever. It would take a minute, but it would be fun. And I'm telling you, those audio recordings, those helped me so much. I had such a hard time learning to, I had a hard time understanding how to make sense of these groups of letters were words. That I had a hard time with that in the beginning, really hard time. God says, I help campaign creators and authors turn their ideas into irresistible offers to people wants to put from finding events to connecting you with niche audience care about your project. I focus on strategies that build momentum fast and keep reporters engaged until the goal is met. Fiverr.com, toying officially. I appreciate your interest. If I had the money to pay somebody to help me with it, I absolutely would. If I had the money to pay somebody to help me with it, I'd hire me a team. I've tried a time or two. Every time I try, it just kind of goes to me. That's no bueno. No bueno indeed. The one thing I do miss about working on stream from working just on my own. I miss my playlist. I miss having songs I can sing along to all day because I know them all. But gotta be out there so I can pimp my book, Alice Lost in Wonderland, issues 1 through 3, available now on Crankstomp. Follow along as Alice is the deadliest bounty hunter in the interdimensional rift known as Wonderland, where all the crazy creatures you've ever heard of before that you thought were just stories are actual aliens, ghosts, robots, and yokai. Lost in the interdimensional rift. Alice is the deadliest bounty hunter in the land, not necessarily because she's the best, but because she kills the most people. She leaves a heck of a wake in her path of destruction. Don't have the information you need at the time? Just start shooting people till somebody talks. That's Alice's take. Oh, I'm on the wrong layer. No wonder it's not doing it. Why does it keep doing that? Alright, let's see. Selectable objects. It's not raster. I don't know why it keeps doing that. It should be there. It keeps going back to that layer. Why is it doing that? Okay, there we go. Shiftez-vous, s'il vous plaît. There we go. Oh no, I don't want free transform, dummy. I want move control. Oh man, I lost it. There we go. Love me a vector layer. Love being able to go back and change that. When you drew a good hand, but it was just a little too big, that's when you need vector layers. Available in all your finest programs like Clip Studio Paint. You say you don't have vector layers in your fancy Photoshop? Well, it sounds like it's time for you to upgrade to Clip Studio Paint. Available now at clipstudiopaint.com, I guess. Does your back hurt after hours of sitting in your chair drawing? Are you missing important muscles called buttocks because you don't get up and walk enough because you spend all your time drawing comic books? Well, it's time for you to get brand new quality butt cushions. Available now at buttcushions.com. Oh God, that probably goes someplace horrible. A lot of people don't know, because I'm such a weirdo drawing comic books all day, I'm also an ordained and licensed bastard. It don't sound like it sometimes. But I are. And I was looking. At one point, I was looking for a new church to pastor, or opportunities to go fill in when a preacher's sick or something, make some extra money. And I went looking on the internet, and I do not recommend searching. What was it? I think it was pastorjobs.com or preacherjobs.com. Because I clicked on that because it sounded like something designed for people looking for, I don't know, preachers looking for jobs. Oh no, it was not. It was a granny porn site. I saw many a horrible thing I will never get out of my mind. I can still see the bent over grannies swinging free like oranges in tube socks. Mr. Nope says, have you ever thought about doing Mr. Fish Comics themed short boxes for swag or stretch goal? Son, you talking my language there. You are talking my language, man. That would be really awesome. I tell you what I've really wanted to do. I had it as a stretch goal a couple of times on my campaigns, but we never quite got there. I've been wanting to get a screen printing rig to set up in the garage. Just a small, like 4-color screen printing rig. Be able to screen print some shirts, but really what I want to be able to do is like screen print the Gemini mailers and stuff, so I could do like a big print all over the whole thing. So when you get the box, it's this whole big printed box, and that would be really awesome because I could just screen print a bunch of boxes. I could buy the cardboard boxes in bulk and just screen print them myself, and that would be really cool. I've also been wanting to do like all over print shirts where you'd have your shirt, but it'd be like just one big image of Caw all over the sleeves and everything, just coming at you. That would be Mr. Nope's talking my language. And it may sound like crazy talk gibberish to most, but not to me, baby, not to me. All right, we're going to go to import image file. We don't need any of those images. Oh, no. We need to go to Mr. Fish Clipboard. And then we are going to scroll down because I don't remember exactly how far down it is because I didn't organize this as well as I should have. That little fact of knowledge I just dropped again is I did not organize my reusable assets as well as I should have. I know it comes as a shock to many. I'm trying to get better about it, but I do still have touch of the ADD. All right, I don't think this is going to work exactly for what I want, but what it will do is give me a template to work from, like pencils. All right, see, this gets too skinny and stuff down here, and that's not going to really work for what I need. But what I can do now is use that as a reference and then ink over it. I am going to turn that layer blue, as you do. So I know that's my pencils, and I'm not going to try and keep that. And now I can get my handy dandy fish bar tool that I made. Let's see what size it is. That's not a bad size, but maybe not quite the right size. Let's see. There we go. Now, ladies and gentlemen, we are indeed cooking with propane accessories. Available now at strictlypropane.com. And while you're on the interwebs, go to GoMrFish.com and check out Alice Lost in Wonderland. Issues 1 through 3 available now on Kickstarter. I'm becoming such a ham with that. I cannot let go of the voice. I've been using it for everything. I've been doing stupid old raps and stuff in it. This one goes out to all the ladies with the LA face and the Oakland booties. In fact, I like big butts, and I cannot lie. While you other brothers may deny, when a girl walks in with a itty bitty waist and a round thing in your face, you do indeed get sprung. You wanted to pull up tough because you noticed that butt was stuck deep in the jeans she's wearing. I'm hooked and I cannot stop staring. Girl, I want to get with you. I won't cuss or hit you, but I gotta be straight, boss. Till the break of dawn, baby, got it going on. I love this tool. I made this was one of the first custom brushes I made, maybe the second, and I have used it in every book I have illustrated since, I think, in some way. Whether it's been the bars and windows, or it's been railings, or laser beams, or something. It has been in. I would be hard pressed to find a book or even very many illustrations or pinups I've done that haven't ended up having that brush in them somewhere. It just comes in so handy, and having one side be just a little bit thicker line than the other just gives it that little bit of weight, like it's a shadow, like makes it look like it's a thing that sticks out instead of just two parallel black lines. And because I made it white in the center, it'll cover over whatever I put it over. So I could draw like a whole guy and then use that to make railings in front of him. And boom, it's there. I could draw a whole city and then put that across the front of it and got railings in front of it so somebody doesn't fall off the, I don't know, balcony or whatever they're on. Whatever they're on that needed a railing. I got that. Dot Quantum is using his powers of transmutation to make the insides of this rock wall visible so the team can realize it's a fake wall. And that is indeed a door, not a giant surface of impenetrable rock. What will the Sentinels do when they realize there's a secret door hidden inside of a mountain? Find out in the Sentinels, issue 12, pre-launch, open now. Go sign up and give your buddy Roy Johnson a thrill. The book again is the Sentinel at Kickstarter.com. Sentinels issue 12. Launching soon. As soon as I get done with a few more pages, probably. And while you're there, go check out Alice Lost in Wonderland. You can search for Alice Lost In, or you can go to GoMrFish.com and go directly there. Oh yes, let me tell you, son, I am using Clip Studio. I'm using the hell out of Clip Studio. I've used them all. I actually taught Photoshop in college back in the day. I remember thinking, it's a mighty fine program. It does some cool stuff, but it's never going to catch on. Probably won't even be around in 10 years. It's too expensive, and it's too niche of a thing. Most average people don't care about photo manipulation and having that kind of control over raster images. Just didn't see it catching on. Much like that temporary fad of texting that I was so sure was never going to catch on. I've been wrong once or twice, okay? My dad may have been an early investor in the Betamax. It happens sometimes. Let's see what this looks like if we do powers with that. That's not bad. I think that gives a bit of the vibe I'm looking for. But yeah, I am a huge Clip Studio advocate. Man, I've used them all. This is hands down the best program I've ever found for doing particularly comic book illustrations where you want like black line art and color underneath it. I've never seen anything that works as well. The tools they have built into Clip Studio for coloring just put everything else to shame. Absolutely. Facebook. I'll never catch on. Who wants to spend all day looking at pictures of their friends and mediocre things they do? Turns out the whole world over 30. I thought TikTok was crazy. I thought TikTok was a bunch of nonsense. Who wants to watch a bunch of kids do stupid dances and eat Tide Pods? I said. I was stupid, I say now. Because it's way more than that, but I didn't realize it at the time. I was out of money. Nobody told me all the cool stuff that was there. Nobody told me that you had scientists and writers and teachers and historians and stuff on there giving freaking master classes on life and history, and nobody told a fishy. They just told me about the Tide Pods and the stupid dances. Well, I'm not a stupid dance enthusiast. I am an education enthusiast. And I flat out love being able to learn about all kinds of stuff. And, even if it's weird stuff like, I got obsessed with watching them make custom rugs in the shapes of like whatever, usually Pokemon or whatever, because that's what gets the clicks. But just watching how you can make all these cool pictures and stuff out of rugs, awesome. Or watching people make really awesome paper mache things, or I love learning. I've never really been much of a story reader. I read some books in school and stuff, and like Beverly Cleary and things like that, but never really been much of a novel reader, just because I can make up stories in my head all day long. It's occasionally like a movie or TV show or something will really get me and be like, oh wow, it's a really cool story idea. But for the most part, I'm like, I can make up stories in my head. I didn't need to go to a book for somebody to make up a story for me. But when it came to like books on education, books on like how to do something, books on how they build telescopes, to be able to see into deep space, or how magicians do their tricks, or how they do the giant floats for Mardi Gras, or, books about how to do something, I freaking love. I've got thousands of them. Once, the internet really started getting some good information on it stuff, man, I got so many books I like printed out of just information that I downloaded from people's websites and stuff. Okay, what was that squiggle? No, put a squiggle there for a reason. Can't remember what that reason was. Oh, I think that was supposed to be more of her hair, but I brought her hair down more. So we'll just make the snowy bank before the door shuts down. Now, see, I think that sort of looks like you can see through the rock wall and see the framing of the door, and so now they know where to blast. I think that's going to work. And I think my back's killing me. So it's time, boys and girls, bring out the cushion we take to cons. Maybe it'll help, maybe it won't. We'll find out. If you'd like to try a butt cushion of your own, you can go to buttcushions.com. Also known as Amazon. Sorry for the kick, but Michael Fishy has Tourette's. Usually it's not too bad. Usually if I'm focused on something enough, it's not too bad. Of course, usually I'm doing this stuff at home alone, so it doesn't really matter how much I go or what. Both of those, it's the funny thing about Tourette's is both of those tics I picked up from Fran. Because when we hang out together, we tend to pick up tics from each other, which is annoying and fun at the same time, kind of. And part of the reason that a lot of parents are scared to let their kids hang out with other people with Tourette's because they're afraid of what the kids are going to pick up. A lot of parents are really scared about the Tourette's and, worried about their kids' future and stuff. And what are people going to think? And are they going to be able to get a job? And, will they ever find love and get married and all that stuff? So, but it turns out your kid's going to be awesome. Your kid's going to be cool. Your kid's going to be creative, imaginative, and have amazing reflexes. Be able to do all the cool things. And yeah, we might take a little bit, but that's just our bodies burning off all the extra awesome we have deep inside. I'm going to flip this again just so I can see any mistakes on my thing. All right, now, Fishy, we can't get too lost in that face. Now, we've gone too far already, really. Really easy to get lost in the zoom sometimes and forget how small the thing we're working on is and put way too much detail into it. And especially on my desktop, this screen has such good resolution that I'm drawing on, and the pen works so well, it's easy to get lost in there and not realize just how small I am, because I can do great work at that size and realize in the end I could probably fit both of these spaces, come close to fitting both these spaces in my thumb. Don't want my first crack at these ladies' faces in real, honest try at them to be any for the first time and mess something up. I want to at least rough in where everything is. Oh, another swag idea. Car tank tops. Waits before finish. I never thought about doing a tank top for car. Oh, dude. Dude. Oh my God. Why didn't I ever think of that before, man? Like a whole cause workout gym, like, you know, get swole by lifting the bodies of your dead enemies. Like there's a whole series of cause gym shirts you could do. Oh my freaking God. I don't know a whole lot of comic book enthusiasts that are going to want to wear a tank top because they're not going to want the man boobs sticking out. But it's a great idea. And I'm going to steal. Thank you very much. That idea was stolen again from Mr. Note. Thank you very much, Mr. Note. I'm a fan. I'm an enthusiast. I am a Note enthusiast at this point. Supporter you. That was one of my first jokes with my wife. We were talking, and I was just going on and on about how pretty she was, how much I liked her. And I was like, "Yeah, I'm a fan. I gotta admit, I'm an enthusiast. Even could call me a collector if there was something to collect. If you had a Patreon, I would certainly be a patron." I always have this problem. I need to look up a reference image. Ben suit. I can never remember which side a man's suit's supposed to button on and which side a woman's suit's supposed to button on. And I also tend to work, I tend to go from working, well, yeah, that's right, I didn't button their jackets because I had them blown open from streaks. Okay, doesn't really matter. But because I go back and forth flipping the page also doesn't help, because I'll usually pencil one way and then ink the other. So it's not uncommon for Roy to send me a message and be like, yeah, his suit's wrong in panel 3. All right, I'll get right on it. It happens. Man, what are you doing? I can't be perfect every time. 99% of the time is going to have to be enough, Mr. Note. But being so hard on a fish. Lord, looking so handsome. Head all shiny and shaved. That's a little bit. In the wise words of one of the wisest prophets I've ever met, I ain't hung up about it. Hey, now that's a story. I used to work at this sign shop in Little Rock, and there was this old man who made the screens for us, shot the silk screens and stuff. I mean, he made them. He glued the screens onto the frames and everything, and then coated them in emulsion, and we'd make the positives, and he'd go out and expose the screens and stuff. Like, he did the whole 9 yards. Old man by the name of Ellis Jane. And the first time I ever really met the man, he was hard at work, and I was sent out into the shop to do a banner in this big room where we could just screw these giant banners that they used to hang outside of Walmarts when, like, somebody would be going to do some new musician would be coming to sign copies of the CDs back in the days when we had physical media. And we would do these banners for them, and we needed a big wall to hang them up on to do it. And so I was out in that room, and Ellis James was right next door across the hall doing some making some screens. And I'm sitting there working, and Ellis is out there just talking to himself, which I didn't think was that weird because I talk to myself. Doing it now. And he just starts talking, and I'm kind of listening. And yeah, thank you. Yeah, I got to constantly pull up reference photos for the jackets. And the thing is, the ladies' jackets go the other way because of all the way back in time when they would have, handmaids putting their clothes on, so it was easier from the outside for them to button it the other direction. And then we just never changed it, which is kind of silly. But, how we make our buttons on our clothes is not the most silly thing we do. So anyway, I was sitting there working, making my banner, as you do, and he starts talking to himself, and he's like, yeah, my brother came to see me the other day, but I ain't hung up about it. I don't really think anything about it. Yeah, he said he was going to take my woman, but I ain't hung up about it. Ooh, big drama over there at this old man's house. Yeah, he said he was going to take her and run away with her. Take my kids too, but I ain't hung up about it. Yeah, my brother done said he was going to take my wife, pulled a gun on me, but I ain't hung up about it. Okay, now at this point I'm listening. I am like, I'm making my banner, but I'm leaning out towards the door listening to the drama that's going on. I'm like, ooh, this is getting good. Because I'm just going to say, I grew up country. I know a lot of people. I've been to a lot of family functions where guns got pulled and stuff like. Oh, there's some good juicy drama here. I'm listening, man. Yeah. Brother pulled a gun on me, tried to kill me, but I ain't hung up about it. I'm hooked on every word he's saying at this point. Yeah, my brother pulled his gun on me, but pulled mine first. I ain't hung up about it. Oh gosh, man, what happened? I'm just listening like I'm really in on something. Yeah, my brother pulled his gun on me. I had to kill him, but I ain't hung up about it. And now I'm like, oh my God, this old man just admitted he killed his brother next door. And oh man, I'm freaking out. He just goes on and on about like hiding the body and stuff. But I ain't hung up about it. Eventually, I'm scared to leave the freaking room. Like, I've been done with the banner for a while. I gotta pee. I'm scared to leave the room because there's a murderer right across the hall from me. I walk out this door. I'm standing right in front of this man that just admitted that he killed his brother. And then he's going to think, I just heard him. And what's he going to do to me? I'm not going to make it home tonight. I got a wife and kids I got to get home to. I'm freaking out. I finally, like, when he's looking the other way, I sneak out of the room, like, 6.5 feet, 300 pounds of me, sneaks out of the room, into the office. I go into the art room through my boss's office. I'm like, Vicky, that dude out there just admitted that he killed his brother and blah, 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 blah. And I'm terrified. I was like, I don't know if we need to call the cops or what. I need protection. She stands up. She grabs me by the arm, drags me out there. And she's like, Alice James, what have you been saying to this boy? And he just dies laughing. He's just laughing his butt off. And he's like, I didn't know if he was listening. I just kept getting weirder with the story and I never got a reaction. So I just kept going. I didn't think you could hear me in there. Oh my God. Such a weird old man. God, I love him. He's such a cool dude. Man was so old. Didn't know how old he was. He was born at home, like one of 12 kids. Didn't have a birth certificate. Just one of the many interesting things about Ellis James. But God, I loved working with him. He was such a weird old coot. Man, he was funny, kind, generous, man. Huge family himself. I was always really envious when like he would talk about his weekends or something and having like 12, 13 kids and grandkids and stuff just stop by over the weekend and, you know, have a big cookout and stuff all the time because, you know, that many people all the time coming around, you know, you gotta pull out the grill and grill a pig or something, you know. Man, I was always jealous of his family and his home life and stuff. Oh yeah, he had some drama. He horse around every once in a while, make the wife mad. Had a hot young wife like half his age, so you know there's always going to be a little drama. You don't get there without it. But man, loved Ellis James, and it has become a tenet of my life ever since. I'm not hung up about it, and it's really, really been a blessing over the years to just think about it. And like when things happen and things go bad, my first reaction is usually just straight up, I ain't hung up about it. You know what? It's not worth getting mad about. It's not worth making a fuss. This too shall pass. No, I don't like that leg going that way. I don't think the leg's going to go that way. I think he'd have his leg this way. So I don't care what I drew before. Can't forget they're standing in the snow, so gotta have some old footprints. Gotta have some old footy prints. Thank you, Mr. Nope. God, I loved Ellis James. Man, he was funny. Oh, I miss working with him. Good times. Good times. Some would say great. I would agree. Speaking of great times, you want a really great time? You can go to GoMrFish.com right now and check out Alice Lost in Wonderland, issues 1 through 3. Alice is the deadliest bounty hunter in the interdimensional rift of Wonderland. With the Tin Man by her side and the broken Vorpal sword on her hip that's sharp enough to cut through reality, she hunts down her time-traveling adopted father, the White Rat. Can she get to him before the other bounty hunters get him? Will she survive delivering his head to the Queen of Hearts, who's sworn to kill her and Big Ten on sight if she ever sees him again? Find out in issues 1 through 3. Alice Lost in Wonderland. Available now. Kickstarter. Get to there quickly by going to GoMrFish.com. Digital and physical comics available. And not for nothing, boys and girls, ladies and dames, kiddies of all ages. For the first time ever, the mini comics that come along with it are available in not only the physical version, but they're available in digital as well. Now, if you've been just buying the comic book up until now, if you've just been getting Alice Lost in Wonderland, you get a great story, you get action, you get adventure, you get a whole lot of blood, not maybe necessarily for the little kiddies. Lots of people die. If you've just been getting the comic, it's a great story. You can fully enjoy it. When you see Captain Hook's appearance in issue 2, it's amazing. It's a cool reveal, and she looks so badass and everything. But if you really want to be in the know, if you're the kind of person that likes to know all the extra little details, if you like all the little juicy bits, you need to be getting the mini comics, because the mini comics for Alice Lost in Wonderland take on a whole other story. It's a whole different story about when Alice was little and she's first in Wonderland. She goes on an adventure with this kid named Buster, who's another white hair like her. And the white hairs in this world, the white hair signifies that they are unique in the multiverse, okay? There's no other variant version of them in any other dimension, no timeline, nowhere. It's just them. And because you don't have all these variants spread out through the multiverse, that's what like really weaves you into the timeline and the multiverse. So if somebody goes back and changes time, that whole tapestry of the timeline gets rewoven and you get rewoven in it, and the paradox comes through, and now you've always lived in a world where, you know, dinosaurs rule the world and, you know, a velociraptor is president. You've never lived in any other world because the whole tapestry was rewritten and you were rewritten right along with it. When you're singular like this, and which is marked by the white hair, when there is no other version of you in any other multiverse anywhere, you're kind of like just a little speck, a little dot or a little scrap of thread laying on the tapestry. So when the tapestry gets rewoven, it just all goes right past you, and your little speck is just still sitting there. So these are the only people that can travel time without creating paradoxes and stuff that will destroy them. You know, there's a time worshiping cult, the Nexus Order, in my book that wants to figure out how to survive time travel so that they can go back in time and change things and force the world into their vision of what they want it to be. But every time they send their soldiers back to change something, the paradox, when everything changes and the time is rewritten, ends up destroying their soldiers and like scattering them through the multiverse, and it never happened. So they can't make lasting changes to things. But Rabbit can. Rabbit can go anywhere he wants and do anything he wants, and he survives it. He just sees time rewrite around him, and he remembers how it used to be, and now he sees how it is. And these people with white hair like this, in some worlds, they're considered prophets and stuff because they know all this amazing stuff that nobody could know, because they keep seeing time getting rewritten every time something happens. Sometimes they're crazy people on the side of the road screaming, "Ah, the world keeps changing. You had a purple mohawk yesterday, and you two were married, and you were walking a dinosaur yesterday." And you just sound like a maniac because time and reality keeps getting rewritten when things happen, and he sees it change, but nobody else does. So that lets them go on these kind of time traveling adventures and stuff and not have the same consequences that most people will. And Buster ends up taking her on an adventure through Neverland, which is called Neverland because there is no land. It's all the poison skies. The ground is lost long ago beneath these toxic poisonous clouds that'll melt the flesh from your bones. Makes for a beautiful sunset, but it's deadly. And most of the people in the Neverland territory of Wonderland don't live very long. So it tends to be a lot of kids that are running a lot of the airships that are surviving in Neverland. And if you live long enough and you survive the toxic clouds and you survive the radiation from being that close to the sun and everything, if you live long enough to get big enough to be bigger than everybody else, then you basically become a bully or a pirate. And so they end up on an adventure going up against Captain Hook when Alice is young. And if you're getting the mini comics, then you see a whole different aspect of Wonderland. You see a whole different world. It works. Things are very different. And then when you see in issue 2, you see the reveal of Captain Hook. Now all of a sudden, you're like, oh, I've got questions. Why is this different? Why is that different? Oh, there, I recognize him, but I don't recognize them. What happened? That's all going to get revealed. But you get all the extra juicy bits in the mini comics, which, like I said, are now available physical and digital. So you can get the digital downloads relatively cheaply. If you want to just get that and have the files emailed to you, you can enjoy the whole story. It's freaking awesome. You don't have to get all the juicy bits. You don't have to get gravy on your pot roast. You can have it dry if you want. It's still good pot roast. But if you really want it good, son, you want to get that gravy. You want to get the mini comics. I'm just telling you, little tidbit from your Uncle Fix. Why am I doing the extra work of making the mini comics? Lord only knows. Why am I making things harder on myself than it has to be? But I love making them, and I love being able to show the extra little bits and the things that are going on in the world and show a little bit more of that world building and all the stuff that makes me love this story so much. It lets me get to some of those parts a little bit quicker, and I'm not going to knock that. Not going to knock it at all. Knock, knock, who's there? Awesomeness. Go check it out at GoMrFish.com now. Alice Lost in Wonderland, issues 1 through 3, available on Crankstomp, which is just another way of saying Kickstarter. Stop trying to get the algorithms to kick me off for wanting to send you to a different platform. I always want to put boots on Ultraman. Ultraman don't have boots. He's got stocking feet. Because some superheroes wear boots, and some walk around in their socks. Mr. Spiderman comes to mind. But he's one of the few. I can't think of very many others besides Spiderman that walk around in socks. That was actually one of my favorite things about the made-for-TV movie Spider-Man when I was a kid, was he had actual gloves and boots. That will always be my favorite Spider-Man costume of all time. Because to me, it just made sense. Like, you could see it was a costume that he put on, and it wasn't like some crazy magical thing that, you couldn't do. Oh, that's a little more detail than they needed at that size, but it'll be good. Like my grandma always said, anything worth doing is worth over. I flipped it again so I can come in here and ink it. Nope, that's not what I want. There we go. God, I love working on this tablet again in here. Hard on my back, but man, it's big enough that I can use my whole arm in drawing things, and I'm not just stuck to using my wrist when I'm sitting in the recliner working on my tablet. or I guess my laptop now. I just upgraded it. I never thought I would go through as many computers as I do now. Man, I never thought I would be like considering computers as a consumable in my business, like you would paper or ink or something, or a printer. I never thought I would be there, but I guess I always kind of thought eventually I'd be able to afford like a computer that would be so good I would never have to change it again. But that's never going to happen, because they're going to keep upgrading things, and I'm going to keep doing more and more things like animation, editing videos, and those softwares are going to keep getting bigger and bigger, and those files are going to keep getting bigger and bigger. And but now, if I can get 2 years out of a computer of good use, I'm like, you know what? I made my money back on it several times over. And as I was looking at upgrades, I was like, well, I could go this far, or I could go that far, and I'm thinking about this new computer in the sense of like, well, it's probably going to get 2 years if I'm lucky. So how is that going to work out financially? Like, am I going to make enough money on it that makes sense? Like, it doesn't make any sense if I just pay for the computer to you. That's ridiculous. I got to make profit. I got to pay bills. I got a house to pay for here. I got a roof to keep over the kids' heads. I have many a digital subscription I have to pay for. So I had to run the numbers and be like, okay, well, $2,000 for a computer makes sense. Like, get as much as I can get out of it, get a fast, good processor. Ended up custom ordering one from HP. And okay, well, that much makes sense. Going like 3 or 4 doesn't really make sense right now for 2 years. If it was going to go 3, then okay. But if I'm only probably going to get 2 years out of it, like has been the norm recently, last few upgrades, then that didn't make sense, even though it would be nice to get one of those really big screens to be able to draw on and get another desktop or something. So I went with the laptop that I could take around with me to shows and things. If they kept the older software backup so your antivirus stuff still worked, it wouldn't be so bad. I too need a new one before the Windows 10 going down soon. Yeah. And that's the thing, like, things just keep getting bigger. The part that really chaps my hide, really tans my bacon, is when they make the newer versions of the software no longer compatible with the older versions of the software. That ticks me off, because like, I used to use Corel Draw a lot because like, if you're working in high-end fancier places that don't do like the ground level, like we actually make the things, everybody uses Photoshop and Illustrator up there at the top. If you're an advertising agency or animation company, or like, anything, you're using Photoshop up there. When you're down here at the ground level and you're making signs for a living, or you're making t-shirts for a living, where you're doing production graphics that are, going to go into use and be mass produced. From there on down, it's basically Corel Draw that everybody uses in Corel Photo Paint. And because vector-based images are just easier to manipulate and change and, resize a million times when a customer wants to change their logo 1,000 times. So usually from there down, we're using Corel Draw and stuff. And so I've always kept Corel Draw on my computer, but I had to pay, back in the day, I had to pay $450 or something to get Corel Draw 6. And that program worked great for years. And it would still work great now if the newer versions of Windows would work with it. The problem that I had was the newer versions of Corel, once it got up to 10 or 11, I think it was 10, because then it was Corel Net. But I think when it got to there, it wouldn't open older Corel Draw files anymore. And up until then, you could save your files as much older versions of Corel if you needed to. You could save them on version 6. I could save it as a version 6, or I could save it as a version 5 or version 4 or version 3 or 2 or 1. And so if I was working with somebody when I first bought it, if I was working with somebody that was still cranking along on CorelDRAW 2, I could save the file in a CorelDRAW 2 format that they could open and use. And the versions after 6 could save it as a version 6, so I could open it on my computer. No problem, no hassle. And it worked great until version 10. And then all of a sudden it wouldn't go back far enough anymore to save it in my version. And it forced me to have to upgrade. And then when they got to 12 or 13 or something, I had to upgrade again because it wasn't working with version 10 anymore. And it's such a pain in the butt. It drove me up the freaking wall. There was no reason for them to do that, except they wanted to build in some obsolescence. So they had to force people to upgrade and not just keep working with the great program that they had for years that they were already paid for. From my understanding, the more RAM they have, the more updates it'll keep up with over the years. Yeah, I mean, processor and RAM is your big deal. For me, I need a lot of hard drive storage space because I work on big files, and I work at the finish size on my books. So when I'm drawing on a page, that's 10.75 by 6 point whatever, the finish size for Kablam or whatever printer I'm working with. But I work at 600 DPI. So the files are bigger because I want to be able to get all that little detail in. I could if I was working 11 by 17, but I don't want to have to worry about resizing and everything, so my files get big. And nowadays I tend to save the time lapse on everything just in case a client wants it, and that makes the files really big. And then when you work on animations or stuff like that, or editing videos, the files get really big. So I want to have a big hard drive to be able to save that. But my main thing is processor and RAM. You gotta have the RAM, absolutely. Wouldn't it be cool if it was easy to have 2 different Windows or whichever version you needed Mac-wise, if you could run them as easily as running 2 external hard drives? Wouldn't it be nice? Wouldn't it be nice if they weren't intentionally screwing us left and right to just force us to have to upgrade? Wouldn't it be nice if Facebook didn't just keep increasing the size of the app until eventually your older phone that still works just fine, still makes great calls, has a good camera and all that stuff, all of a sudden you can't do anything on that phone but have Facebook because it takes up all the space? Wouldn't it be nice if they didn't do crap like that just to make you buy a new one? Wouldn't it be nice if iPhone didn't make the battery suddenly quit working so that you had to upgrade to a new phone? That's why I don't buy Macs. They're freaking intentionally sinister. Everybody's a little dirty. Everybody's a little nasty. Apple's always just been a bitch about it. I can't stand them. All right, the first ones to go to subscription services and stuff. They were the first, when they made the Macs, they were so picky about who could make software for their precious Mac, and they really wanted you to have to buy everything from them. But eventually they had to start making deals with like Photoshop and let it work on the Mac and stuff. But you had to buy the more expensive Mac version to get it, and they were so exclusive about what they would let on there. Where PC, like, I can make a program and sell it to you that you can put on your PC and run. If it's a cool program, you get to use it. If it sucks, well, you don't come back. Yeah, better luck next time. God, I miss that. I miss the good old days. I miss the good old days when you could just buy a piece of software and you had that software. You own that software. You can keep that software if you wanted to. Not anymore. Now they just want to let you rent it. Oh, you don't want to rent it anymore? Well, you got to pay me $80 not to rent it. But that sounds criminal. Not anymore, because we paid off the politicians. You don't like that? You want to run for office and make changes? Ain't gonna happen without our money. I don't like the fact that kids quit using my social media and now they're using his other social media. I'm going to make a whole bunch of donations to politicians. And all of a sudden, we're going to be real concerned about them spying on kids, eating Tide Pods and doing silly dances. It's our national security. We need to ban the competition. It sounds great until somebody comes along with more money than you and makes you the competition. Ever want to be in a comic book? Being a friend of your Uncle Fish is a good way to get in there. These two ASG agents, American Security something, I can't remember what the ASG stands for, are two of our friends. What's this dude's name? Ray, I think, if I'm remembering right. I'm drawing a blank at the moment. And the other one's my buddy Eric. He gets stuck in the background of a lot of comics sometimes because I like sticking my friends in there. I like sticking my family. If you look carefully, me and my kids end up in the background of just about every comic I've worked on. Except Green Zone and my stuff. Like, my stuff usually takes place in such unique worlds and stuff. It's hard to just stick regular people in there when, like, most of the people in the book are mutants in Green Zone. Like, one of my buddies is in there as a human, but he's in there as a human screaming at the mutants, which ain't necessarily the most fun place to be, but he's in the book. I had to have somebody throwing a rock at Virgil at the end of issue 4, and I had been sticking some backers from the book, some of the first backers on the Kickstarter. I was sticking them in the pages of the book that I was finishing up, and I was thinking, who am I going to have throwing a rock at Virgil? And I couldn't make anybody else do that. It felt like a jerk move. So I put myself in there because somebody's going to be responsible for hurting old Virgil. It's going to be me. But all the other books I work on always need like crowds of civilians and stuff. So that's a great place to stick your kids, your friends. My buddy and his family have been in a whole bunch of books. My pastor at the time was the first person I stuck in a book. I needed a henchman, and in the book, the guy was like, "No, don't, please don't. I got kids. Don't hurt me." And my pastor buddy was a foster parent at the time, and had like 8 kids at his house with his own and his foster kids. So I made him the henchman. It's like pulling him upside down, and his hat falls off, and I made like an alternate version of the church logo on his chest that had the M for his initial. And it's like, "Oh, please don't hurt me. I got 8 kids at home." It was so funny doing that. And then the monster drops him and he runs away like a chicken. His kids laughed so freaking hard when they saw that book. I started sticking my friends in there all the time. I started sticking them in left and right. And it's just been more and more fun to do and find interesting ways to put them in there. In one point in 5-star, these guys rob this armored car, and 5-star picks it up and stops them, and as he sets it down, like some money's falling out of the back of the car, and you can see my oldest 2 sons fighting over each other, running to try and grab some of the money. And like me and my wife are back there. I nearly got knocked down by my kids running, and my dad's in the background like, "What the hell?" I actually stuck my dad in here too. Speaking of which, I had just gone to visit my dad and was working on some pages. Let me pull this page up real quick. I was at my dad's house for a visit, and I was working on this page and just made these guys look like them. There's some friends of some podcast hosts that are, friends with Roy, and so he stuck them in the book. And I needed somebody back here with this kid on his shoulders, so I put my dad in there. Younger version of my dad from like back in the 80s, but that's my dad. The kid doesn't look like me or my brother, but that's my dad anyway. So he's in the book. He's in a couple of books, but he's there for sure. He's a rich, fancy party goer in 5-star 3. He's a civilian on the street in 5-star 1, I want to say. Being a friend is a good way of doing it. Mr. Nope's well on his way, giving me all these great swag ideas. I didn't have another book call planned for the near future, but now I'm thinking I might need to correct that. The plan at the moment is to focus on Alice and get several issues of that out, mostly because it's my passion project. It's my magnum opus. It's the reason I got into making comics in the first place. I've been working on this idea, marinating on this idea, adding to it, enriching it. Like, it's gone from like a childish power fantasy of what would it be like if you could just do anything and go anywhere and there's no rules, to actually being a deep, rich, complicated story about like parenthood and childhood and generational trauma, and trying not to make the same mistakes that your parents did and making all new mistakes, and kids could still come out hating you anyway, and about adoption and all kinds of things that I've been through and experienced and watched and seen, and my family and my friends, and real things that make for real interesting and sometimes painful stories. And I do have a penchant for the fact that sometimes you can try to do everything right and still not win. And so Alice and Rabbit have a very complicated relationship. And you get to see flashes of like when she was younger, and it was a fun adventure in Wonderland, and she's going on swashbuckling adventures, and it's all fun and games to her with this scoundrel, the White Rabbit. And then you get to see, like, as it goes on, you get to see how it gets deeper and how it wasn't always fun and games, and kind of start to understand a little bit of why she has such a chip on her shoulder for her old man. Why she swore nobody would get to kill him but her. And it leads her down this whole path. And my goal really is like when it comes to the White Rabbit and Alice Lost in Wonderland, issues 1 through 3 available on Kickstarter now at GoMrFish.com. My goal really with the White Rabbit is I want to make you love him and then kind of hate him, understand why they have such a bad relationship now. I want you to kind of understand and identify with him a little bit, and with Alice as to why she's hurt. Like, I want you to be able to look back at all the craziness and carnage at the end and be like, yeah, I get you, girl. I understand. I might not have done the same thing the same way myself, but I get you. I understand. You're not crazy. That was tough. And understand a rabbit. It's not like he's a monster. It's not like he's, not like he was horrible to her, but he did the best he could with what he was given and what he had to work with. And that didn't turn out great. And how those consequences can get handed down generation after generation and have consequences you never would have imagined. Ultimately, I hope it gives people a little grace for people they see going through a hard time. If I could really ask for anything, I want you to have an amazing time on a swashbuckling, time-traveling adventure and learn to give people a little grace. And believe that most of the time, we really are doing the best we can. And most of the time, when somebody has hurt us, most of the time, not all the time. You didn't hear me say all of the time. I said most of the time. They didn't go into it wanting to hurt us. It might have felt like that in the moment, but most of the time, it wasn't, ooh, how can I make fish suffer? Most of the time, it's either, most of the time it's by accident. They didn't even know they were hurting your feelings. Or I have found most of the time, other than that, if it wasn't a total accident, it usually comes down to they were doing the best they could with what they had. Maybe they had faulty information. Maybe they listened to a source they shouldn't have and got the wrong idea. Maybe they knew what they should have done, but they were too scared to do it the right way. Like, and I can understand that. I've been there. I've known what to do and been too afraid to do it the right way because I didn't want to speak up or have a tough conversation or whatever. And when I break it down to the core of what really happened like that, it's usually not that bad. And I can usually point to a time in my own life where I did the same thing. Like, I've had instances in my life where somebody really hurt me, went around behind my back, I don't like that. That curve's not quite right. I don't know if I can. Nah. Too much to try and do that. Alright, I'm just going to delete it and remake it. Anyway. As Mr. Nope was saying, there have been times in my life where somebody like has really hurt me, and one that comes to mind a lot just because I think it's a great example is where I was in this private group of young adults with kids. And, you know, it was a place where we were supposed to be able to talk freely, say whatever we want to say without worry about it getting out. Nothing that was said in those rooms, much like AA, was ever supposed to leave that room. Every day we were in there, we talked about what a safe place it was and, you know, how nobody was going to say anything. Nothing was going to leave that room. And if anything was wrong, we would address it in the group among ourselves. You know, the leader of the group would address you in private if there was an issue that needed to be dealt with. But we weren't going to make a scene. We weren't going to go run anybody's business. So it would be a safe place where young married couples could talk about the joys and the struggles of being a young married couple, and, you know, realizing that marriage isn't a fantasy like they tend to make it out in the stories and movies and stuff. Like, it's not just, everything's not just magically good now that you got married. You know, there's struggles and there's strife and there's disagreement at times, and, you know, things don't always go your way, and just give us a place to be able to talk about those things and deal with those things and not have to worry about people getting out and running their mouth about, like, oh, so-and-so's marriage is over. Oh, crap, he's got a cast on. That's not a muscular arm, dummy. And so as I was talking with somebody in one of these groups, and I was counseling with somebody who was asking me questions, the leader of the group's wife, who was quite the busybody, was eavesdropping and misheard something I said and took it completely the wrong way and thought I was trash talking somebody outside of the group. And so she took that to her husband, who, by the rules that we talked about every time we were in the group, before we started every meeting, that everything we said in the group was going to stay in the group, nothing was going to leave. You know, anything that needed to be dealt with, we were going to deal with ourselves and not let it get out and start any drama, because that wasn't what we were there for. by those rules, if there's a problem, he should have come to me directly and talked to me about it. Instead, he chose to go to the church elders and tell them that I was running my mouth and I was causing dissension in the church and I was talking bad about the elders of the church, the deacon of the church, and he ran and tattled on me. And that was the first time I ever got brought up on church discipline. Notice I said first, but wasn't last, but it was the first time. And I was so hurt when he did that because A, he broke all the rules of the group that we were in. And if he had just come and talked to me about it, I could have told him what I had actually said and explained to him that it didn't have the meaning that he interpreted it as, or that his now ex-wife had the conclusion she had jumped to, because everything's got to be drama. I could have explained it and dealt with it before it ever had to become a big thing, but he was too scared to address me one-on-one because at the time we were best friends, and he was too scared to come have that conversation with me and risk our friendship because he was scared. And unfortunately, and not by my choice, ended up losing the relationship anyway. And that really hurt. That hurt worse than anything. But he never really could reconcile in himself, I guess, the fact that he had made a mistake there and didn't do right, and that caused the rift, and he just couldn't deal with that, and so we weren't friends anymore after that. And it broke my heart because I still wanted to be his friend. I don't care if someone makes mistakes. I've made mistakes. Whoa, have I made mistakes? I'm not going to hold a grudge against anybody for that. That'd be silly. But the more I thought about it, and that had long-lasting consequences on me. Because of what he did, I ended up getting pulled out of teaching the class that I was teaching at the time, which really hurt because I was really enjoying teaching that class. But it ended up having longer lasting consequences and ended up becoming a black mark on my record with everybody there. And nobody could ever see past that issue when it didn't happen that way. I wasn't talking bad about anybody. But they could never get past the fact that, well, somebody had to come tell on Fish. He must have been doing something. And that basically ruined the rest of my relationship there at that church because he went running his mouth instead of just coming and talking to me the way we had agreed we would do in the rules when we set up this group, which ended up, as I had to go around on an apology tour and apologize to everybody involved for unintentionally causing dissension among the church, which I hadn't really done, but still, that's what I ended up having to go apologize to everybody for having somebody overhear me and run their mouth about it and cause a bunch of gossip, and that was all my fault because I was eavesdropped on. It ended up destroying everybody's confidence in that group, and that group died. I hate that. I hate that group died. I ended up losing my best friend over it at the time, which I really hated. And for a long time convinced me that you couldn't have friends in church, because eventually something was going to happen and they were going to turn on me, whether it was a difference in tiny theological belief or whatever it was. No matter, I just thought for a long time, you just can't have friends in church. You can serve, you can be kind, and you can love them, but you're never going to really have any friends because they're not going to last. And I still regret losing him as a friend. Wish I could have it back. Some of my funnest times were being his friend. And I wish that mistake hadn't have cost me that. And I wish it hadn't ruined the group that we were in. And I wish it hadn't ruined my future at that church, because I really loved that place and I loved the kids I was working with. And didn't realize what a toxic environment the whole thing was until I got out of there and got in another church that was healthier. And so, wait a minute. You mean tell me you can be in a church and not go in a cold sweat when the pastor calls because you're in trouble for something? Whoa, you mean your preacher could be your friend? No, that's got to be against the rules. That can't be true. And that one mistake cost me a lot for a lot of years. And it would be really easy to be bitter at him about that. If you got a problem, yo, I'll solve it. That's a quote. But that cost me, that had great consequences for a long time. Caused a lot of ripples in a lot of lives, and I really hated that. But it would be easy to be mad at him about it. It would be easy to say, you were a jerk and you didn't do what you were supposed to do. You didn't handle it right. And it hurt me. It hurt the church. It hurt all these people that were in the group. You know, it caused gossiping, running your mouth. Couldn't man up to your wife and tell her that she was being ridiculous, because Shirley Fish wouldn't have said something like that. You couldn't man up and talk to me in person. You couldn't, it'd be real easy to find a whole lot of things to be mad about. The point of the whole thing that I've been trying to get to, the whole reason I've gone down this tangent, the point of it is when you boil it all down, and not what am I mad about? Not how did he hurt my feelings? Not how many reasons can I have to be angry at this dude? But when I really boil it down to the core of what happened, the problem, his wife's a gossip. She still is. It's part of her core DNA. That's never going to change. He was a coward, blah, 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 blah. Dissension in the ranks. When you really boil it down to the core issue, what's that little nugget in the center that all the layers of this gobstopper of pain have been built around? The core of it was, he knew what he should have done and he didn't do it. He knew what he should have done and he was too scared for whatever reason to do that. And when I boil it down to that, and I take away all of the pain and all of the tears and all of the issues, and when I take away all of that and boil it down to, he knew what he should have done, a little bit, he knew what he should have done, and he was too afraid to do it. I can think of a whole lot of times in my life when I knew damn well what I should have done. I knew I should have stood up and said something when that person was acting a fool in the restaurant and talking trash about that person that walked in. I should have stood up in their defense and said something. I should have stood up when somebody was harassing somebody at the theater. I should have stood up when the guy behind me in the restaurant was drunk and going on a rant about how there can't be no God because he doesn't love us and, bad things wouldn't happen. I had the answer to what he was saying. I knew I should have stood up and said something right then to him. And I missed that opportunity. I missed that opportunity to see God at work and really do something cool. I was too scared to stand up. I was too worried about being embarrassed because my dad was there. I was too worried about making a scene and making my ex-wife mad. I knew what I should have done, and I didn't do it. So when I boil it down to that key, I can understand that little core. I can understand that problem. I can empathize with that problem because I know I've made that same mistake. And it makes it a whole lot easier to have grace and to forgive that. And so that little cord that you should have known what you knew what you're supposed to do, and you were too afraid to do it. I've been there. I felt it. I understand that. I'm sorry you felt that way. I'm sorry. I apologize. I forgive you. I can let that go. And that, boys and girls, ladies and gentlemen, children of all ages, is the key to your Uncle Fish being a happy man. That has fundamentally been the most impactful change in my life. It has been just learning to boil things down to the core. Makes it much easier to forgive. And then when I forgive, I also choose to forgive. And every time that little memory wants to pop back up, that little angry fishy wants to pop back up, be like, oh, but you remember the time she did. No, I don't remember the time because I've forgiven it and I've let it go. But she did. No, because I forgave it and I let it go. But you remember how many times? No, I don't. Because I forgave it and I let it go. There's also, while we're on a soapbox, while we're preaching, there's an impactful little message in the Bible where it says, when it's talking about what love really is, and it says love keeps no record of when it's been wrong. And the actual term is like love keeps no tally. It is an accounting term that's used. Doesn't keep a list of check marks of every time somebody's made a transgression. And the more I dwelt on that and meditated over that and thought about that and how does that apply, especially coming from family of accountants and such, I realized that a whole lot of my anger and a whole lot of my inability to let go of things was because I was holding on. I was constantly going over the list of grievances that people had committed against me. And the thing I realized about it is somebody hurts you, they hurt you that one time. But every time I dwell on that, every time I go over and I run it over in my head again, they're hurting me again and again and again and again. And all that tally does, all that record keeping does, is keep me hurt, keep me angry. All it does is keep all this inside here in turmoil and frustration and rage and righteous anger. I should be mad at the world and screw them all. And I was miserable. I was absolutely freaking miserable. I wouldn't hurt nobody but myself. That bully that teased me in middle school is not having to suffer through any of this rage of the 6 billion times I went down the list of every time he embarrassed me and knocked me down and threatened me and scared me. Yeah, he doesn't have to suffer any of that. He's living his best life out there somewhere. I am the only one that was suffering with the tally, with the constantly going over the list. When I let that go and I quit keeping that tally, my life got so much freaking easier. I cannot express to you the gigantic difference in my life when I decided to start letting that go and quit keeping that tab. And from the gigantic things, like this dude nearly ran me off the road and nearly killed me, to this person actually did kill somebody I love, to all the big tragic things. My best friend raped my girlfriend in high school. Like, all the big things, down to the little things, like my ex-wife squeezing the toothpaste tube in the middle of the tube. That drove me freaking insane for years, and I would be so mad about it. And every time I would go get the toothpaste tube, she freaking did it again. That is 365 times this year alone that she did it. And that's compounded over 2 years, 5 years, 10 years, 15 years, 23 years. And then every time I go over it, it's happening all over again. And it was just infuriating. Why can't this just stop? Over freaking toothpaste tube. But when I decided to let that go, when I decided I was not gonna keep a tally anymore, I was not gonna keep a record. Now when I get up every morning and I would go to that toothpaste tube and it was squeezed in the middle, well, it's a toothpaste tube that was squeezed in the middle. That problem's about this big. It's not 10 years, 20 years of it being squeezed in the middle and the disrespect. No, not keeping a tally, not keeping a record. It's this one thing. And this one thing ain't very big. Ain't a big issue. Much easier to let go of a toothpaste tube that was squeezed one morning. Was squeezed back the right way and put my toothpaste on there. Not the end of the world. That's not a big deal. When it's this instant, when it's not every time they ever made a mistake, every time they ever crossed me, every time they ever didn't do something right the way my OCD brain thinks it needs to be, suddenly I was a much happier man. And the benefits I've seen from actively deciding to forgive people that cross me and being able to boil it down to the core of like what it was, and that little bitty thing is an easy thing to be able to forgive, and then I forget it and I let it go. And every time that little gremlin fish wants to come up in the back of my little lizard brain, be like, oh, but you remember every time they did that? Oh, they did it out of disrespect. They did it because they don't love you. They did it because they hate you. They want to take you down. Nope. That's gone. We've let go. It doesn't matter. We are not keeping a record. We have forgiven and forgotten. It's done. But, nope, it's done. We're not doing that. Shut up. See you later. And like any muscle, the more I practiced that, the stronger it got. Most of the time, I can't even hear him knocking anymore. Everywhere once in a while, he slips through the door. But most of the time, I don't even hear him knocking. I'm fine. I am so much happier. I spend so much of my freaking day laughing at my own stupid jokes now instead of being angry all the freaking time. It's like a night and day difference. It's all about forgiveness, boys and girls, days and days. Let it go. Let it go. Just stand back and let it go. I don't know the words to the song. Won't stop me from singing. But it has stopped me from drawing the Sentinels, and that just ain't going to do. Because they need to hit Kickstarter soon. You can go to the pre-launch page now and sign up for the Sentinels, issue 11, on Kickstarter now, at Kickstarter.com. And while you're there on your favorite green-themed crowdfunding source for all things indie comics, you can also check out the active Kickstarter for Alice Lost in Wonderland. Issues 1 through 3 available now on Kickstarter. Physical and digital. All domestic U.S. shipping included in the price. So no surprise when you get to checkout. Oh, wait a minute. There's an extra $16 to add on there. Nope. Not here. It's all included in the price. Been trying that for the last 2 campaigns. See how it goes. I know personally I really hate, like, I want to know how much it is. I hate the whole like, well, we'll figure it out later how much shipping is, or I just tell me how much it is and let me make my decision now. And once I saw that there were some other campaigns out there that just included shipping in the cost and not as an extra thing so that it seems like it's cheaper, not a bait and switch, if you will, or even if you won't. I liked that so much. I was like, you know what? I'm going to adopt that. That one's got the Lee name now because I've adopted that practice. Hopefully that looks like the Crimson Streak stretching. I hope. Thought it would be funny to have Streak limbering up while the energy guys are blasting holes in the wall. Have him limbering up before he runs in and saves the day. Because he knows his part's coming up next. Yep, Mr. Nope's right. Sometimes it's better to maybe find out people don't have your back when it's something that shouldn't be a big issue versus when you actually need those people later on and find out then. Boy, howdy. I tell you, you fixing to lead me into another story about friendship. After finding out that, and feeling for a long time that you couldn't really have friends in the church, something was going to happen eventually, and they weren't going to be friends no more. I met a fella, ended up becoming my best friend in the church anyway, and my best friend for a long time, period. And we did a lot of things together. Our families were inseparable for a long time. Still are in a lot of ways. And dude always had my back and I always had his. Loved him like a brother, still do. And then, once upon a time, my ex-wife disappears out of nowhere. All of a sudden, I'm getting a divorce. And everything hits the fan. Things aren't going well, and that's a big deal in the church. Suddenly, we went from being the apparent image of what you'd hope your marriage would be like after 23 years. Suddenly, she's gone. She's skipping the state. What's that? The sheriff department's at the door. They want to seize our house because the mortgage hadn't got paid in 6 months. What the? It was chaos. It was a hard time. It was an embarrassing time. Things didn't go well. I certainly didn't handle it as best I could have. Got to be honest with you, despite not wanting to get any strikes against me anywhere or cause any trouble with the algorithm, let's just say I had been convinced by the woman that everybody in my life would be much better off without me there. And she was the love of my life. She was my wife. She was the person I swore to spend my life with. And here she's telling me how much she hates me. And it's only a matter of time before my kids do too. And they're going to hate me as much as she does. And then I'll be all alone. I should just do the world a favor and quit being. And to my shame, I took her at her word and gave it a shot. Not proud of it. Wish it wasn't the case. And it's really hard to talk about. But I also know the fact that those problems are so hard to talk about is a big part of the reason that I've lost so many friends over the years. Because when they went through the same hard times, they thought it was either too hard to talk about out loud or nobody else has ever felt as bad as I feel. And much like I had been convinced in the moment, everybody would be much happier without me clouding up territory. And so while she took my son out grocery shopping, groceries that she knew we weren't going to have a house to keep them in a couple of days, she left me the opportunity and means to try and end her suffering for her. And so I went through one of the worst days of my life, which led into the worst night of my life, and hospital visits and EMTs and all, I believe, in an attempt to try and prove what a terrible husband I was and try and make it all my fault that this was happening before anybody found out that the sheriff's department was coming. If she could make it all seem bad enough and make me a danger and a threat, then it's all my fault and not her. She's just the victim. And she expected that, when she left, she could convince all of us to just run and leave and not be here just when the sheriff's department came to seize the house. And then she could just say, well, I had to let the bank take it because the old fish was a monster. The problem is, we didn't run. We didn't go anywhere. I just said, like, well, if you need to leave, you can leave. But we're going to stay. We got no reason to want to leave because we didn't know the bank was going to come to try and seize the house. And so, short story long, we made it through all that, and then everybody found out what really happened and stuff, and what she was up to. But in the process, when I went through the hardest time I'd ever been through, and I lost everything, and obviously nearly died, time that you would really need a friend, they might say, my best friend dipped on me. Nary a visit, nary a phone call, nothing. Just disappeared. I had to suffer through the hardest time of my life. I had to recreate my life. I had to figure out a new way of living, a new way of doing, all while trying to build a new career in comics because I'm too disabled to do anything else. Thank you. I'm glad. I'm glad too. One of the best failures I've ever had. But in the process, I lost my best friend. He wasn't there for me. He disappeared on me. He's gone. And I had to suffer through all that alone. Then you fast forward 6 months, year, I can't remember how long. his beloved father died. His father was always there for him. They were incredibly close. I was always super jealous because I did not have the same relationship with my father. Um, dearly, dearly loved each other. And his dad's kind of a carbon copy of my dad, but they had a much better relationship. But much more godly relationship. Dear man. He drove me up the wall sometimes, but I loved him dearly. Good friend. And when he passed, and I found out that he had just died, I threw some pants on, some shoes on. I jetted out of the house. I was there an hour before the ambulance got there. Take his body away. And I was there for my friend. You gonna make your fish cry over here. I was there for my buddy at the worst point in his life. Going through the hardest time in his life, the hardest thing he'd ever dealt with. I was there in a heartbeat without a question asked. It was not even a question of, are you going to go? I was already out the door before you could ponder a question. And one of my sons later asked me why, and we spent practically all day there with him, just loving on him and being there while he cried and, just letting him know that he wasn't alone in the world at this hard time. And my son asked me, why would you do that for somebody that wouldn't do it for you when you need it? And I told my son that, in my time of need, he showed me the type of friend he was. And I can be sad that he's not the kind of friend that I wished he was. Or maybe the kind of friend that he had portrayed himself to be up until that point. But when stuff got really hard and got complicated, he didn't want to deal with it. And if I'm being honest, I had always known him to be that way. I shouldn't have been surprised. I was surprised that he did it to me. But I've seen it before when times got hard. He just wasn't there. And so I told my son, he showed me the type of friend he is, and that's okay. I'm never going to imagine a responsibility on him as my friend to do something that he's incapable of doing. But the type of friend he was to me is irrelevant to the type of friend I'm going to be to my friends. I am the guy who isn't keeping a record of how kind were you to me, how much have you done for me. Well, you helped me move, so I need to be there when you do XYZ. No. I'm the guy that's going to be there for you. If I wish somebody would be there for me during that time, I'm going to be there for you. Because I want to be the type of friend that I want to have. The type of friend you are to me has very little relevance on the type of friend I'm going to be to you. Now, if you prove to me that, you can't be trusted with my confidence on something, I can't feel free to talk to you about things, that will change our relationship a little bit because, now I can't talk to you about certain things because I know you're going to go running your mouth or you're going to try and stir up trouble or something But that doesn't mean I'm going to stop being your friend. That just means I'm going to stop being the friend who tells you things. But yeah, that was an important lesson I learned that day, that I was not going to let anybody else determine the type of friend I am. And I can stand behind that. I can stand behind that all day long. like my wife in a cute pair of pants. I can stand behind that all the day. All right, now let's throw some snowy rocks in here. Yeah, after I lost a dear friend a couple of years ago to essentially the same issue I had, and I asked him before because I knew he was having a hard time and going through a divorce. I was like, "Are you okay? You need somebody to talk to? You can call me anytime." "Oh no, I'm a therapist. I'm surrounded by therapists at work. I got plenty of people to talk to. That's not a problem." Reassured me he was fine, didn't need anybody to talk to. Turns out he was just too scared to talk. Too afraid of saying things out loud. Too afraid of what people would think if he admitted that. Too afraid of always being that guy that had that feeling that time or struggled with that thing. You don't want to get labeled. That was a big part of why I never said anything, because I didn't want to get labeled that guy. And that's a big part of the reason when I was asking him that, I didn't say, when I went through my divorce, I had a really dark time there, and I believed what she said about I shouldn't be there anymore, and tried to make her happy and give her what she asked for. And it was a terrible thing. And the worst part about it, the absolute worst thing about it, is the way I hurt my kids in a way I can never fix. Because even though I'm still here, that made my kids feel like they couldn't count on me to always be here. I was rock. In their minds, I was a rock that was always going to stand firm and would always be here for them no matter what. And I broke that. And that is a plate that you can break, but you can never put back the same way it was. I've apologized. I've done my best to make amends, etc., etc. But I can never go back to that childhood feeling of my dad's a rock that I can always count on to make it through anything. And I hate knowing that I took that away from him. We've all got good relationships and stuff now. We've talked and we've healed and we've apologized and talked things through, but once you see behind the curtain, you know it's the wizard back there, and it's not the all-powerful Oz. You just can't go back to believing it is. But I wish I had had the strength and the courage to talk to my buddy about that. It may not have changed a thing. once certain events were set in motion, it probably wouldn't have changed anything. And it's not my fault, and it's not my, and I'm not blaming myself or anything for it. It's just, I just wish I had been brave enough to talk to him about it, but I wasn't. And I made myself a promise after that, because that was the fourth or fifth friend I had lost to the same cause in a couple of years. That particular illness's stats were doing way better than cancer or anything else among my male friends. And frankly, I'm sick of it. And as I was weeping for my friend, who I dearly loved, and I would love to get to go grab lunch with again, and had my back when my disability got really bad, more than anybody. I made myself a promise then and there that I was never going to be too afraid to talk about it again. Just on the off chance that it helps somebody. Somebody has to be brave enough to stand up and talk about the hard things and the embarrassing things. And somebody has to be willing to get a little egg on their face and be willing to talk about it and open up and be brave before anything's ever going to change. And I'm sick and tired of going to funerals for people that didn't have to die. Man, I'm sick of cancer too, but there's not much I can do about that one, but maybe being brave enough to talk about it will help with the other. May not, but by God, I would rather embarrass the hell out of myself and make some people think less of me and try than not. I would much rather fail trying to make a difference on that particular subject than win and not at the expense of my brothers. So on the other side, you realize how senseless it is, but in that moment, it feels like the only loving, responsible thing you can do. How could you love your kids and not? How could you put them through the burdens? Having to exist with this, it's sinister. It thrives in the darkness. Grows in the darkness and the silence of us being too afraid to talk about it. I love you too, Brad Arnie. Let's see. Mr. Nope says, I'm sorry to hear that, man. Glad you're able to talk about everything with them, but I get it. We're all stubborn and told not to talk about our feelings and stuff growing up. Absolutely. You don't want to be weak. Don't want to be a punk. God forbid somebody think you're a bitch. But, man. And that's what keeps us quiet. And that's what keeps us too embarrassed to talk about the things that we need to be talking about with each other. Can't be a punk. Can't look weak in front of the boys. They'll never let it go. If I'm not strong, I'm nothing. Well, if you're gone, you're nothing too. Just not to be contradictory, just to point out a fact. And the real kicker, if we're going to be honest, we're going to be blunt between the three of us here and the interwebs. I'm not saying this to embarrass anybody. I'm saying this out of a necessity. Not long after, I got therapy. I spent some time in therapy. I spent some time doing some hard work on myself, realizing how toxic and unhealthy my marriage had been, and really did some hard work on myself, getting healthy and getting better. And met a beautiful woman, some lovely kids, and we got married, and life is good and life is happy, and we all move in to my house that I didn't lose to the bank, because me and my son worked our butts off and paid off all the money that my ex had stolen, and life is good. And then her ex-husband, who I will freely admit was a royal pain in my ass, and hers. He left and moved across country with his new wife, well, to be with the new wife, and only came by to visit every once in a while and blow a bunch of money on the kids rather than paying child support, and come in and be Mr. Fun Guy for the weekend and want to act like nothing had happened and spend a bunch of money that there's no way his wife could afford, or my wife could afford, because she was trying to survive and support two kids and stuff without rarely getting any money from him, sporadically if at all, but then he could take that and blow it on the kids, and then you add on anytime you told one of the kids no for anything, within 2 minutes the phone would ring and you'd hear him on the other side just screaming and cussing. How dare you? Blah, blah, blah. Well, they dared because they haven't been doing their homework and they're failing class, so you can't play video games today. Oh, well, I guess that's okay then. And we would get screaming phone calls from him all the time. He up and left, just disappeared one day, didn't tell his job he was leaving, stole a bunch of tools, yada yada, and just disappeared, and turns out, oh no, I got another woman across the country, I'm gone. And just took off. But the second he found out, like, we were on our first date, boy, he's calling me. And it just never stopped. Always just dreaded the phone ring, because he was gonna show his butt. And then, not long after we got married, we get the phone call from his wife that Colby had been dreading the whole time she'd known him. Because he was always an alcoholic, and he was always depressed, and he was always getting drunk and threatening things, and he'd get drunk and disappear, and didn't know if he had finally done what he'd been threatening to do, or is he just run off with another woman again? You know, is he going to be home at all? Is he ever coming back? Or is he laying in a ditch somewhere? And that night he got drunk, got depressed, and that was it. And to see, after having gone through that, like year and a half before myself, almost being there, and having to go through all the damage that caused with my kids, just coming close, getting in the area, to see the consequences, and the trauma, and the damage, the way that broke my stepkids, to see them still living in the shadow of that years later, see that pain still fresh on their faces. It breaks my heart. And the thing is, it breaks my heart for him. Because as much as he was a pain in our butts, I would absolutely give everything. I would give up my dream career working in comics, spend the rest of my life stocking shelves at the Piggly Wiggly, if we could just get another angry phone call from him because we couldn't afford to buy Eli a brand new car when he blew the engine up in the last one, or to have to awkwardly sit next to him at graduation and, you know, make nice at birthday parties. And I would give anything to do that again. I would give anything for Eli to be able to call him. Ask for his advice on the old job hunt after school. But couldn't talk about it. Couldn't ask for help because that would have made him look weak. To see pain and to know what it feels like in that moment. Really didn't expect to get on here and cry, but you know, thanks. To know what it feels like in that moment, to think that this is the best possible thing I could do for everybody I know. It's the best possible thing I could do for my kids. It's going to hurt them, but in the long run, they'll be better off and they'll understand. As mad as it makes me that he did it, that it hurt our kids, in a way that, may never be healed. At times I want to be mad at him, but I just feel so bad for him. I wish there had been some way to tell him in a way he could have heard and accepted that it's okay to ask for help. But even at your worst, kid's better off having you here than being without you. So I made myself that promise that I was not going to be too afraid to talk about it, as much as it hurts, even if it means crying on the interwebs while I'm working on the latest issue of The Sentinels. Relaunch page is live now at Kickstarter. Search for The Sentinels. Kickstarter, where all the fine indie comics are sold. I'm glad to be here for him, and I'm happy to do everything I can, even if it's being the guy that you get mad at because I'm here and he's not. That's okay. I'll do that. Being as being as I got Tourette's and whatnot, I'm a loud guy anyway. My wife is always worried that I'm gonna be mad or I'm gonna hold a grudge or something. And like if I'm disappointed or surprised or shocked or frustrated, I might be loud for a minute, but I keep telling her I've never been mad at any of them for anything. I might be disappointed that this didn't get done, frustrated that the cat box stinks and you smell it as soon as you open the door sometimes. Like I might be frustrated about that, but I'm not mad at them. And I'm never going to be, I tell her and them all the time, I'm never going to be mad at a kid for acting like a kid. Got a little stupid with your friends. You're trying to show off for the boys and do donuts or whatever. And you end up blowing a transmission in your car. I mean, that's frustrating. Wish it didn't happen, and I hope you learn a lesson from it so that you don't do it again next time. I'm never going to be mad at you for doing the kind of thing the boys do. Now, if you started a global race riot, yeah, I might be mad about that. I might hold a grudge about that because that's not the kind of thing the boys do. Not normal boys. But you did something stupid trying to show off for a girl, or you got caught doing something dumb with your buddies, or you thought surely you know more than all those stupid adults in your life, and you did something ignorant. That's the kind of thing boys will do. That's the kind of thing kids will do. And you can't be mad at kids for acting like kids. That's just silly. That's like getting in the shower and getting mad at the water because it got you wet. What a dog. Get mad at a snake for biting. That's what snakes do. They can get mad at yourself for picking up a snake and taking it away and don't bite you. 2.5 hours and we got 1 page ink. That is really slow for Uncle Christian. But I'm not usually talking and crying and stuff on it either. Well, I'm talking to myself. I'm not carrying on conversation. From my buddies on the internet. That's 1 page now. We're going to turn on the lettering to that page. And then we're going to flip it back the right way so we can see it. And then we're going to export. We're going to export us a JPEG. And we're going to send it on for and hopefully it gets approved. Hopefully this is the kind of book people want to go to Kickstarter and sign up for the pre-launch page so that they can back, you know, the Brad Arneys of the world, the Mr. Nopes, if you will. Maybe they like awesome indie comics and they want to go support it on a place like Kickstarter where you can go follow the Sentinels now, the pre-launch page, or you can go to GoMrFish.com and you can sign up now. Get your copy of Alice Lost in Wonderland, issue 3. Brad Arney knows what I'm talking about. Brad Arney's always in there. He knows good stuff when he sees it. Or he's very sympathetic for old fat man. One or the other, but either way, I appreciate you, Brad. Oh, God, I really love the way this is coming out. I love working on this tablet. Man, it's hard on my back sitting in this chair. I'm in a lot of pain. But man, I love getting to work on this tablet. All right, we are going to save that. Skadoosh. And I'm going to get off here for a second. I'm going to go get a new drink. I'm going to stretch, do my stretches, try and help my back a little bit. And I will see you guys later. I may be back on streaming again this afternoon, probably because we got to get the word out about GoMrFish.com where you can pick up your copy of Alice Lost in Wonderland, issue 3. Follow the beautiful, blonde, bloodthirsty bounty hunter as she kills her way across the multi-dimensional rift that is Wonderland on the hunt for her adopted estranged father, the White Rat. Time travel brought her to Wonderland in the first place. Now she's bound by a magical contract with the Tin Man by her side and a broken Vorpal sword on her hip that's sharp enough to cut through reality. How did she get the sword? Why is it broken? Where did Big Teeth come from? You gotta go to GoMrFish.com now and sign up, get yourself a copy if you want to find answers to it. And while you're there, oh babe, don't you forget to get yourself the mini comic. You can even get them in digital now if you want to, so you can catch up on the little side stories about what's going on. They're short little adventures that give you a little peek into Wonderland and what it's like and how exactly does that sword work and is it as easy as it looks like. You can find out in the pages of the Alice Lost in Wonderland mini comic that's also available now. Go MrFish.com. I'll see you there. I'll be back on here later on probably because you gotta pimp it out for the world if anybody's gonna see it. Thank you guys for hanging out. It was a wonderful, deep conversation. I really enjoyed it. Good cry. I spent most of my days laughing. Good cry once. Well, good boy. Does the heart good. Washes the dust out of tear ducts. Anyway, I love you guys. Glad to have you in my life. Thank you for your support. And I'll see you later on this afternoon.